My name is Dr. Leslie Van Romer, and I have been a chiropractor in swim for over 30 years. I'm also an author, books. I wrote the fun, spunky book called Getting Into Your Pants, so you can only imagine what that is about. And then a workbook to go with it called Getting Into Your Pants Playbook, of course. So these are the tools that I suggest that you get if you're really interested in making some changes. I'm also a speaker, and my new role is I'm a grandma of twin baby girls. So that's my newest role, and I'm very proud of it. And I got to be there before, in the middle, and after the birth. So it was an amazing experience, actually, the most amazing one of my life. I actually am something else, too, and I think this is the role that I enjoy the most, not counting grandmahood, of course, but the role I enjoy the most is that I'm a cheerleader. And I'm really here to say to you one thing, is that you can do it. You can do it. And sometimes your life depends on it. Look at all the things you've done in your life. Think about all the things you've done in your life. You've gone through school, you've gone to college, you've gotten jobs, you've had marriages, you had to get through marriages, you got divorces, you've gone through deaths, you've had children, all the things that we go through when we have children, all the experiences, the lifetime experiences that you have. You cannot tell me that you can't change what you put into your mouth. You absolutely can. So I'm here just as your cheerleader and a little bugaboo to tell you that you can absolutely do it. Tonight, this is the 7th presentation in 2009, and we're going to talk about mostly diabetes. And it's sort of like we talk about in all of them, but it's really focused on diabetes. The one next month is on osteoporosis. And I suggest to you, many of you have come from one presentation to the next, and it really is building knowledge upon knowledge upon knowledge upon knowledge. And we think that we're going to remember something. But every time I prepare for one of these, and I do prepare every time, even though I'm giving them many times, because I forget. And I go through the information again, I get the new information, and I look at studies and the things that I think I can add to try to connect with you the best way that I can. And I have to say that I forget so many things every time. So that means to me that if you hear something once, it doesn't mean that you're always going to remember it. So it's important that we get a repetition, especially when we're trying to change habits like eating habits. Eating habits are the hardest habits to change. Absolutely the hardest habits to change, because we were taught from the time we were this big, little babies, like my little grandbabies, what to eat. You know what I did with my little grandbabies? Remember, they're both born, and what's our first memory? What's our first memory? Do you know? Sense of smell. And that's why one of the reasons why we're so hooked into food, because when we come home from the hospital, or we have at home, whatever, our mothers are cooking the food, and we might not eat that food, but we're smelling that food. So we're really highly conditioned from the time we come home. Or I had my babies at home, so I was already home. So I decided that with my daughter, I was going to program the babies my way. And because they're my daughter's babies, my daughter trusts me implicitly, so she thinks I'm crazy anyway, so I do whatever I want. So I take the watermelon and put the watermelon beneath my babies' noses, my babies, right? And go, watermelon, watermelon, smell watermelon. And true story, apple, 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 cantaloupe, cantaloupe, orange, orange, tomato, tomato. So I'm hoping that some of these other smells get imprinted into their brain so they're not so conditioned. Although my daughter does pretty well with that. Did you know, just to get back on the diabetes, do you know that if you are 30 pounds overweight or have a BMI of about 30, that your chances of getting type 2 diabetes is 3,000%. 3,000%. Now, to give you an idea of the relative risk, and it used to be the highest relative risk was smoking and lung cancer. That was the highest relative risk. That relative risk is 2,000%. Now, do you believe there's a correlation between lung cancer and smoking?
Yes.
It's sort of a no-brainer, isn't it? Do you believe that there's a relationship between weight and type 2 diabetes? It's more than smoking. If you have a BMI of 40, which is 40 pounds or more, sometimes it depends on your height, your relative risk for getting type 2 diabetes is 6,000%. 6,000%. Do you know what that means? That means that if you have a BMI of 40 or more, that does mean that you have diabetes, whether you know it or not, or whether the doctor knows it or not. You have it. You just don't know it. Diabetes type 2 almost always is a condition that is created by whom? Us. Us. Almost 100% of the time. It has to do with what we do every day and what we've been doing every day for many, many, many years, from the time of my grandbaby's ages. But that doesn't mean it's ever too late to reverse that, because the body is amazing. It's very self-healing and self-regulating. All we need to do is do the right stuff to it, because it's so smart, way smarter than us. It's so smart that it really wants to get better. So all we have to do is do the things we need to do to get it better. And that's eating well and exercise. And there's other things too, but really eating well and exercise. The sleeping part's pretty easy. Clean air on the peninsula, that's pretty easy. But the eating part's not so easy, is it? And the exercise is not so easy either. I wanted this presentation especially. My hope and my wish is that you can go home and actually make some changes. Even if it's one change, I'm happy, because sometimes you can't do anything more than one change at a time. So I have some work for you to do right now. Because the number one, diabetes and me, you see that? Diabetes and me. Because I want you to look at this chart and figure out right now what your BMI is. So look at the chart, BMI. That's your body mass index and risk for disease. Now, if you look down the left-hand column, you'll see the inches. And if your math is anything like mine, if you are 5 feet tall, you're 60 inches. I'm 5 feet 9.5, so I'm between 69 and 70 inches. And then I know that you know your weight. So go down your height. Take your pen and mark your height, whatever it is. Are you marking it? Mark it. You've already done that? Oh, good. And so whatever your weight is, I know you know your weight. Almost all of you know your weight. So mark your weight, whatever that may be. And then look at the row at the top, and that's your BMI. If you're 30 or above, you're at risk. If you're 25 and above, you're at risk, really. You should be below 25. If you're below 25, that's good. If you're below 19, they say you're underweight. Has everybody done that? Now, just because we're skinny doesn't mean that you don't have a chance of getting type 2 diabetes. Just want to emphasize that. And then in the book, in this playbook, I have that at the end of the book. I have those charts here, the different charts, so that you can. So at the end of this, you have this as a permanent record, and you can track your own. So the BMI chart is right there. And then on the next page, let's go to the next page. This is a little chart, risk of diseases according to BMI and your waist size. So now it's not just your weight, it's also your waist size, which you may not know, so you have to go home and measure yourself, and please do that. That doesn't take much effort, but please do that. So it shows you if you have a BMI of 30 to 34, or 35 to 39, or 40 or greater, and you have a particular waist size, if you're 40 inches in men or 35 inches in women, it explains, it just lets you know your risk for disease. So if you have your BMI is 30 and your waistline is 40 inches for men and 35 inches for women, you have a high risk of getting some kind of disease. And I'm not talking about just diabetes, but diabetes and heart disease and cancer as well. Do you understand that? Is that sort of clear? If not, you can ask me afterwards. But start looking at these things, because you know what? Just find out where you are. Let's just open our eyes and be aware and just find out where we are and be realistic about this. And so sometimes when we're just aware, that really helps us open up the next door of awareness. So let's not stick our heads in the sand. And if your blood glucose is over 100, you have diabetes. The doctors won't tell you that, but if on the average your blood glucose numbers are over 100, you have diabetes. It's not pre-diabetes. You have diabetes. Because what does pre mean? Pre means that if it stays there, it's going to go right into full-blown, whatever that means, diabetes. So just pay attention to those numbers, and they have kits that you can get at the drugstore and get the strips and figure out what your own blood glucose is. The A1Cs are the most accurate, and you get those from your doctors, and they should be below 6. I would write that down. So your A1C should be below 6, because a lot of the medical doctors would say, well, if it's 6.6 or 6.2 or 6.5, that's okay. No, no, no. That's not okay. It means that you have diabetes. So it's important to know your numbers and know where you stand. And then you can start making changes and have clearer intentions based on facts, not based on having your head in the sand. What is so scary about type 2 diabetes? People are really scared. People are really scared about cancer. Cancer is scary. Scary to all of us. Type 2 diabetes is also scary because of this. They used to call it the sweet sickness. Blindness, strokes. Strokes, you get strokes 2 times to 3 times as much with strokes. Kidney failure, amputations, CVD, cardiovascular disease. You get heart attacks, fatal heart attacks, 2 times to 4 times as much. Women, the statistic is 4 times. Dr. Dougal, who I've done this presentation with before, who I work with, who's an internist and a diabetic specialist, who's in Paulsville, and I've been working with him for about 3 years, he says if you have type 2 diabetes, you've already had your first heart attack, but you don't know it. In other words, if you have type 2 diabetes, you have a heart problem, and you might not know it. You might know it, and he said always. Because if you have type 2 diabetes, you know what goes hand in hand with that? Any of you that have type 2 diabetes? High blood pressure and high cholesterol. And so your heart is at risk at the same time. So it's not just type 2 diabetes, that's the problem. It's sort of globbed together with other things too. It means that your body's sick. It's sick. So it's time to get it well. And it can get well. So amputations, cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, we talked about this last time. That's the clogging up of the arteries with the cholesterol and the fat. I think it's so interesting. We get up in the morning, we take our cholesterol pills on the one hand, and on the other hand, we keep eating the cholesterol. So we wake up and have the cholesterol pills, and then during the day we keep eating the cholesterol. Do you really think that that pill is going to negate all the cholesterol that you eat during the day? And do any plants have cholesterol in it? Virtually no. So if you're eating basically a plant-based diet, you're not getting extra cholesterol. If you're eating any kind of animal products, you're getting cholesterol. There's just as much cholesterol in salmon as there is in beef. So we think that salmon is so good for us. I would take a look at that. Just as much fat in chicken and poultry and cholesterol. And there's just as much cholesterol in chicken and poultry as there is in beef. So I would take a look at that. Also, premature aging happens with diabetes type 2. Early death, I think that's significant. And nerve damage. Nerve damage. The reason why we get the most amputations in this country and the most blindness is because of type 2 diabetes. I didn't do it. It must have been somebody else. Did your kids ever say that? I didn't do it, Mom. Okay. We always blame our mothers and our fathers and our grandfathers and our grandmothers and say that our mothers had diabetes or our mothers didn't have diabetes, or my mother had heart problems or my mother didn't have heart problems, or my mother had cancer or my mother didn't have cancer, or my father or my aunt or my sisters and brothers. You know what the bottom line is? Genetics loads the gun, you pull the trigger. 5% of what we get, whether it's diabetes or heart disease or cancer, the geneticists say that 5% of what we get is caused specifically by genetics. 95% it has to do with what we do every day in our lives. 95%. So we've got to quit blaming other people and take self-responsibility for our own bodies and our own lives. That's a huge step. This poster is, I think, 4 years old now, maybe 5 years old. Now, every year, there's 300,000 deaths caused by diabetes. And it's ugly death, isn't it? Unless you go quick with a heart attack. Otherwise, it's an ugly death if they start cutting off your limbs. It's fairly ugly. The fourth leading killer, there's now 20 million Americans that have it. A third of those are unaware that they have it. Unaware. Part of the problem is when you go to the doctor doesn't say that you have type 2 diabetes because the markers are not under 100 necessarily. They say it's kind of okay if you have 110. I don't know. I don't think it's kind of okay if you have a little bit of lung cancer, do you? I don't think it's okay if you have a little bit of diabetes, do you? I don't think so. Anyway, 2 to 4 times the heart disease and strokes. 40% increase in diabetes in the last 10 years. It's probably gone up at this point. 600% increase in diabetes in the last 30 years. 600%. And you know what it goes hand in hand with? Weight. Because our weight has increased by 60% over the last 10 years as well. So as our weight goes up, you know what happens? The diabetes goes up too. So weight's everything. Weight is so much. It's everything when it comes to some of these diseases. There are now over 400,000 deaths directly related to being overweight. And these, of course, are just some of the diseases and conditions that are caused by that. Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, colon, breast cancer, uterine cancer, prostate cancer as well, strokes, and, of course, arthritis. Our biggest killer disease of all is this. You can call it diabetes, you can call it heart disease, you can call it cancer, you can call it gallbladder disease, you can call it atherosclerosis, whatever you call it, but our biggest disease really is this, the disease of excess. And it's not an excess in fruits and vegetables. It's an excess in fat and cholesterol and sugar and salt and processed and packaged and all the foods that Americans were brought up on and we still love. I want you to look at your handout for just a minute. We're still on page 2. Roman numeral number 1, it's underneath increased risk of those, and the diseases are right there. Question, and write the answer down. Who do I want to live for? If we have let ourselves go, you can put yourself first, that would be good, but it could be somebody else. If you have let yourself go all these years, obviously it's not you, is it? So think of one person in your life that you want to live for. One person, not 3 grandchildren, so sorry. It has to be one person your brain can wrap around, that one person who needs you the most. Who's that one person you want to live for? And every time you wonder whether it's worth it to eat correctly, think of that one person. Say, I want to live for this one person. Because I don't know about you men, but I know we women, it is more easy to do it for what? Other people? Than it is to do it for ourselves. So I want you to name one person. One person, write them down now. I'd have to choose between my 2 little grandbabies. That was bad. It'd be pretty hard. Okay, now, question for you. Look at me first. Look at me. Come up here. This is the question. Do you want to treat diabetes? Do you want to control your diabetes? Or do you want to get rid of it? It might be just to treat it because you don't want to go through what you need to go through in order to get rid of it. And that's an honest answer. It's better to be honest with yourself than it is to put something down that you think that I would like. I'm not going to see these papers or they're not going to be graded. So you think in your own heart and your own guts, what do you want to do? Do you want to treat your diabetes? And do you know what happens when you just treat your diabetes and just try to control the blood sugars? Do you know what happens? Nothing. Just gets worse and worse. Ask anybody that's had diabetes. One of the women that I've worked with, I think it was probably, Dr. Dougal and I had a diabetes program. We worked with people for a year. And one of the people, she started a program with a hospital in Bremerton, I believe it was, or wherever it was. And she was in a diabetes program with several people who had diabetes. Every one of those people has died. Every one. Because they don't teach you, and this is very common, how to what? Get rid of it. They treat it. They try to control it. But they don't teach you what? How to get rid of it. And really, the only person that can teach you that is yourself. Because I can't do that in an hour. I can't do that in a consultation. I can't do that in 6 consultations. But you certainly can do it. And you can do it by reading and going to these kinds of presentations just to get you started, just to get you sparked to do it. This is an excellent book. Dr. Neil Bernard's book for reversing diabetes. Reversing diabetes. So that means getting rid of it. That's what we want. We want to get rid of it. These are good books as well. The McDougall Program for a Healthy Heart. Because remember, if you have diabetes, you also have a heart problem. And they go hand in hand. If you're eating correctly for your heart, you're also eating correctly for your pancreas. It all goes together. And this is a good one, too. The China Study. It's an excellent book. It just teaches you how animal protein in itself is hard on your heart. Not just the cholesterol and the fat, but the animal protein. And how it's one of the causes of certain cancers. And this is a great one. Look at this. Prevent and reverse heart disease. Prevent and reverse heart disease. He doesn't say control it. He doesn't say treat it. He's saying prevent and reverse it. And in fact, he does do that. So there's lots of things you can read. You can start with my book, which sounds pretty funny, getting into your pants. But if I'm good at anything, I'm good at being simple. I'm a good, simple person. So what I do is take all the things that I get from all over the place, and I make them and put them in terms that are really simple to understand. Because if you can't understand it, you can't use it in your life. So I'm a really practical person. I love to read those kinds of books and get the information, but you know what I also love? I want to be able to apply it to my own life, or to me it's a waste of time. So this is a book that you can really apply to your own life because it is practical. That's the reason why I wrote that, because I had all these other books, but a lot of my people wouldn't read them because they were too complex. So let's get simple. Let's not worry about the whys all the time. Let's just get simple and figure out, well, what can I do now? What can I do in order to get rid of the diabetes and clean out my arteries? Because arteries and hearts and pancreases do heal if we do the right thing. So I want to treat my type 2 diabetes, control it, or get rid of it. I'm assuming, I'll just make a crazy assumption, that 95% of you said get rid of it. Okay, if you circled C, ask yourself this. Next questions. These are serious questions, and you can't maybe get into it as much as I want you to right now, but you can go home and look at this. Am I truly committed to getting rid of my type 2 diabetes? Now look at that. Are you truly committed to it? Yes or no? If you're not, say no. Sometimes it's timing. I mean, we want to be ready, but we're not quite ready. Honestly, we're not quite ready. So just be honest and write one of the two things down, yes or no. If yes, okay, let's take it another step. Am I willing to read the books, get the appropriate support and accountability? Because it does take support and accountability. If it didn't take support and accountability, it would be easy. But we have to help each other get through this and make the necessary changes. Are you willing to not only get the support, read the books, get the information, but are you willing to put principles into practice? It's one thing knowing information and storing all this information in our brains. It's a whole other thing converting principles into practice. And it's really a lifelong journey. It's not easy. But remember, it's all about progress. It's not about perfection. It's all about progression. It's not about perfection. I think most of us are perfectionists, and so therefore we give up when we get off track. And that's the biggest mistake we make. I have these little bracelets, and I think we might have brought them, but maybe not. They're called The Only Slip Up is to Give Up. You're not slipping up when you get off track. You're not slipping up. You do slip up if you give up. Don't ever give up. You can't give up on the only house you live in your whole life. It's your body. You can't give up on it. You have to keep working at it. And it's progression. We have to beat a lot of conditioning. I am starting my Getting Rid of My Diabetes campaign on this date. Put a date down. Put tonight, July 13th, 2009. Put next week. Put next month, 6 months from now. Whatever you think. And then keep this in your mind's eye. Put it on a little 5x3 card and put it on your refrigerator. Good place for it, huh? Refrigerator, or maybe in the mirror. On the mirror in your bathroom somewhere. So let's take a look at what diabetes is, type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is when your pancreas, the aisles of Langerhans, they no longer work. So your body is completely incapable of making insulin. It's sort of a freak of nature. Your body really attacks itself and attacks the pancreas. That's kind of what happens. It's an autoimmune disease. And so your pancreas doesn't work anymore, and so you have to take insulin. If you didn't take insulin, you would die. But if you have type 1 diabetes, if you eat correctly and if you exercise, you can keep the amount of insulin down because insulin is harmful in your body. It's a life-saving drug, obviously, but it's also harmful to your body. So if you have to take insulin, first of all, you gain weight. And diabetes, a lot of times, is all about gaining weight. It's crazy. So we take these drugs, and when we gain weight, our diabetes gets worse, and it's a vicious circle. You gain weight, but it also is very hard on your blood vessels and on your heart, insulin is. But then if you have too much glucose in your system, in your blood, if you have too much glucose in your system, what is that hard on? It's not hard on your kidneys and your eyes and other delicate tissues. So you see there's this balancing act going on all the time. We don't want to have excess glucose running around our blood. That does not mean that glucose is bad. Glucose is the fuel that our bodies live on. There are several organs, especially the brain, that lives exclusively on what? Glucose. So we need glucose. We don't want glucose from refined sugars, though. We want glucose from unrefined carbohydrates. Simple and complex. So this is what happens. We eat the food, then the body converts it into blood glucose. So the glucose goes into your blood. And then from the blood, the glucose goes into the cells. But in order for the glucose to go in the cells, the insulin from the pancreas, you following me? The insulin from the pancreas literally piggybacks the glucose into the cells. So if you get the concept that insulin is your friend, and it brings the glucose into the cells, and that's what keeps us alive and gives us energy and does all the things that we need to do. It's very important, this glucose. It has a bad rap, but hello, that's what keeps us alive. So I don't know if you can see this in the back, but you can see this little insulin piggybacking the glucose into the cell, and then it goes into the cell, and that's what feeds the cell. If the insulin is ineffective, then there's more glucose that builds up in the blood, and the body perceives that as not enough insulin. So then it produces more insulin. So then you have two things going on. You have too much glucose in the blood, and you have too much insulin in the blood, because the insulin is ineffective in bringing the glucose into the blood or into the cell. And then you have all the excess insulin and glucose racing around your system. And then what the doctors do, and remarkably so, they try to balance this all out, you see. But they give us drugs in order to control this. They give us drugs, and the drugs do what? They make us heavier. And that makes the diabetes worse. And also, insulin also blocks the body's ability to get rid of cholesterol. You wonder why we have high cholesterol when we have diabetes. Part of the reason is because of the cholesterol, because our bodies are blocked from getting rid of it. But also the part of it is what? We eat it every day. What's the biggest bad guy in type 2 diabetes? You guys are too smart. What'd you say? Who was that? Other voice. Fat or sugar. But really, through the eons, right, decades and decades, we've always been told what? That sugar's a bad guy and sugar's what causes it, and was called the sweet sickness. What is the #1 cause of diabetes, type 2 diabetes? It's fat. It's fat. For a couple reasons. It's fat. That's Mr. Fat Blob. It's fat. It's fat. Is this gross or what? This is 5 pounds of fat. That's all. So if you have a BMI, you did your BMIs. If you have a BMI and you're about 30 pounds overweight, let's say, that's 6 of these. 6 of these in your body. But you know what the beauty is? When someone comes in, and with the people that I'm working with their weight, and someone comes in and say, and the women particularly, and they're depressed because they only lost whatever. It doesn't matter how much they lost. It was never good enough. But let's say they've lost 5 pounds or 10 pounds. I'm able to say, 5 pounds is one of these. That is significant, that you're not carrying around one of these anymore. And then what if it's 2 of them? That's 10 pounds. You can't tell me that's insignificant. It's really significant. So that's 2 of these. I wouldn't mind a little here. But I'm not willing to pay for it. Not willing to pay for it. You know, some things we got and some things we don't got. I want to share this study with you. In fact, the study's on page 3. So you can bring these home and look at this. So it's not just me spouting off stuff, because I know your memories are not that good. So it's for you to look at this stuff when you get home, too. At least my memory's not that good. So these are the key points of this study. And Dr. Doolittle's the one who turned me on to this study in one of his journals, and this is one of his journals. I just want to show you how official this is. I didn't make it up. I'm not good at making stuff up either, not most stuff anyway, not this technical stuff. This is his journal. You remember he's an internist and diabetic specialist, Internal Medicine World Report. That's the study you have on the handout that I typed up for you. And this is the study. Losing weight keeps diabetes at bay. 100% of the time, no. A lot of the time it does. And they found out the key points. And you have your key points right on your handout. The key points are that weight loss is the single best way to ward off diabetes, regardless of age, gender, or ethnicity. For each 1 kilogram of weight loss, how much is 1 kilogram?
2 pounds.
You guys are so smart.
2 pounds.
Yes, 2.2 pounds. About 0.4, da-da-da-da. And the reason why I'm so smart is because I looked up last night, because I didn't know what it was myself. So for each 2.2 pounds of weight loss, look at this. The risk for developing diabetes was cut by 16%. Just 2.2 pounds. You can't tell me you can't get rid of type 2 diabetes. If your pancreas is producing insulin, you can absolutely get rid of type 2 diabetes. And if you can do something, what about if you lost 5 pounds? Look at the risk of diabetes, how much it goes down. Do you see? It's not like we have to do that much. We always think we have to do that much, but no, it's just about baby steps. You can't tell me that you cannot lose 2.5 pounds that reduces your risk of getting diabetes by 16%. We can all do that. All of us can do that. Just don't eat a couple nights. You'll be fine. You lose 2.5 pounds. Losing, but look at this. This is what I thought was very interesting. Losing 5% to 7% of your body weight. And exercising a minimum of 150 minutes a week. That is 2.5 hours a week. How much television do you watch? How much time do you spend eating? How much time do you spend doing nothing? How much time do you spend talking on your telephone? You know, now you can talk on your telephone and walk at the same time. Remember that. So we're just talking about 2.5 hours a week. The best is an hour a day. So you see, you can make shifts and baby steps and take baby steps and really make a significant difference in your life. That's what's so exciting. And also, eating a low-fat diet could reduce the risk by greater than 90%. I'll say it again. Losing 5% to 7% of your body weight. If you're 200 pounds, what is 7% of that? 14 pounds. So 14 pounds if you're 200 pounds. That's not that hard. So exercising for 150 minutes a week and eating a low-fat diet could reduce the risk by greater than 90% of getting diabetes, which also means what? It also means you can get rid of it. That's exactly what else it means. They also found in this study that the people that were most successful in consistently losing weight and getting their diabetes, getting rid of their diabetes, had accountability. That's why you're here. This is what this is all about, accountability. Our weight loss support group that we have every week is what? Accountability. Coming to see me and having a consultation is accountability. The support and accountability is absolutely critical. I know we think we can always do it on our own. We always think we can do it on our own. But you know, after not being able to do it on your own, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, I mean, how many times have I heard a woman say, you know, I gained this weight when I had children. Well, how old are you? 62. I mean, maybe we just need a little help. And a simple plan, something that works and something that's practical and something that's not all or nothing. And something that we have to jump on board with those kinds of programs that don't make us feel bad because we slip off, because we're human beings. If you're a mere mortal on the planet, I got news for you. You cannot be perfect. So you might as well know from the get-go you can't be perfect. So when you slip off, what do? Like a baby. You just get yourself up and you keep going. Instead of guilting women, oh my gosh, war, 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 war. We're just so guilt-ridden. Save your guilt. We don't need any more of that guilt. This is a study that was done. A vegan. You know what vegan means? Vegan means no animal products. So these people had no animal products. Do I suggest that you do that? I mean, I would never actually come out and say you had to do it, because I know a little kid would rear its ugly head in you and say, I'm not going to do that. I'm an adult. I'm going to do whatever I want. I have to have my meat, and I have to have my cheese, and I have to have my dairy, and I have to have all those things that we grew up with. So I would never say that you have to do anything. That's a bad approach, isn't it? I used to say that, actually. Didn't work. Didn't work. But this is what this study was. Vegan means no animal products. In a vegan diet, it's 60 to 7% grams of fiber. In the American Diabetic Association diet, the ones that recommended for diabetes, has 30 grams of fiber. Fiber has a lot to do with how the pancreas works and how the insulin works. Fiber has a lot to do with a lot of things. Zero cholesterol was in this diet. 200 milligrams of cholesterol was in this diet. Remember, when you're taking insulin and some of the other diabetic medications, the cholesterol doesn't get out of your body the way it's supposed to. It accumulates. Have you ever noticed your numbers? Yeah. And then this is a 30% fat. That is way too much fat. You should have no more than 10 to 15% fat in your diet. So the vegan, zero cholesterol, 10 to 15% fat, 0, 0, 0. They don't talk about wiggle room. They're mean. 0 refined foods. In this group, within 3 months, 59% of those people, their blood sugars went down, the cholesterol went down, and they lost an average of 16 pounds, and they were either off their medications or their medications went down. And what happened over here? Nothing. Died. Died. Nothing. I mean, nothing. And do you know what the ADA says, the reason why because they recommend the same diet that the Heart Association does. Why do they say they recommend that? Because they say Americans don't have the willpower to do better than this. I say that's insulting. I say give us a choice. Let's get the facts, and I can choose for myself whether I have the willpower, the desire, the commitment to make the changes that I need to make. When you have a diet like this, with only 30% fat in your diet, and trust me, if you have meat and dairy every day, once a day, you have a 30% fat in your diet. But you can't tell me that 30% fat in your diet for when you have type 2 diabetes is the way to go. I mean, if you had, would your doctor ever recommend that you only smoked 2 cigarettes a day? I mean, we know that smoking is killing, isn't it? It kills us. It's like putting coffins in your little nails in your coffin. So a doctor would never say, oh, it's okay. You know, smoking's bad for you, but if you just had 2 cigarettes a day, that would be fine. I don't think so. Well, the same with this fat. That is it's too much, and you're certainly not going to be able to get rid of your, or even control your diabetes with that. I'm going to talk about the nose first, and usually I don't do this, but I have to do it with diabetes. But if you absolutely are intent and committed, these are the nose at first. And I know some of you would be shocked because we talk a lot about nuts and avocados in our diets. But if you have diabetes and you really want to get rid of it, it doesn't mean that you can never, 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 never have these things later down the line. We're talking about right now, today. I would suggest you seriously look at the nose. I should have written those down on your handouts. I didn't. But refined carbs. What are refined carbs? White sugar, white flour, white rice, and quick oats. Those are refined. Anything that's packaged and processed and whatever, it's all refined. It's refined. So no refined carbohydrates. What are carbohydrates? They're also your fruits and vegetables. So fruits and vegetables are absolutely necessary for type 2 diabetes and everything. I'm not talking about those carbs. I'm talking about refined carbs. Any kind of processed foods. So if it comes in a package and has a label, it's processed. Bread is processed. It is. There's some breads that are better than others, but bread is processed. And think about what process is. Where does bread come from? It comes from the fields. And there's a grain or something. Then they go, they put it in a package, and the label is about this big usually. Typically it is, unless you make it yourself, but it's still processed even if you make it yourself. Cereals are processed. Cereals are processed. Anyway, so salt. Bread has the most hidden salt of any kind of food that we eat. We also get a lot of salt, of course, in meat and dairy and all of our processed foods. So some people say I don't salt anything. From the salt shaker, on the average, only 15% of our salt comes from a salt shaker. The rest comes from the food that we eat. So salt, fats, oils, any processed oils, including olive oil, meat, dairy, eggs, and this is a hard one, nuts and avocados. I would say because of the high fat content. At first, when you're first trying to get rid of your diabetes, I would really watch those and or eliminate them altogether, and then introduce them into your diet later on when your pancreas starts doing what it needs to do, when it does what it's supposed to do. Any kind of sweet stuff, fruit juices, and also dried fruit. Those are the kinds of things we're talking about if you're really committed and you're really intent on doing this. It doesn't mean that you can't eat anything, because you can follow my plan and eat lots. Ha! I know it hurts, doesn't it? Oh, coffee. It hurts, doesn't it? Yes. Coffee is really hard on diabetes. Do you know why? Because it's really hard on your blood vessels. And what about, if you think about diabetes, what is the reason why you have to have your toes and then your feet and then your lower part of your leg cut off and then the upper part of your leg cut off? Why? It's because we get gangrene. Why do we get gangrene? Because the circulation is poor. So coffee is very hard on your blood vessels and on your circulation. This is, if you have type 2 diabetes, I would really think about that. I'm not telling you not to do something. I'm telling you to look at it and think about this. Are you committed or are you not committed? Do you really need that coffee? I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of horror stories with diabetes. Horror stories. Besides being all these things, which I talk about in other presentations, that addictive, stimulant, unstable bladder, indigestion, headaches, nervousness, fatigue. I mean, we just love this coffee, don't we? This is what it causes. High blood pressure, higher cholesterol, higher triglycerides. This is fat in the blood. Our atherosclerosis, that says arterial, it's actually a misspelling. Heart attacks, strokes, osteoporosis that leaches calcium out of your bones. We're going to talk about that next time. Rheumatoid arthritis, there's also a cancer relationship with coffee, like stomach cancer and bladder cancer. So, I don't know. Just think about it. Just think about what you're putting into your body. You know, think about me sitting on your little shoulder and really harping in your little ear and saying, do you really want that coffee? I mean, is it really worth it? I just cannot believe it's worth it. So just think about me sitting on your little shoulder as you're eating, as it is. I think people already do a lot of times. I get thought about a lot, not at the best of times always, but think about it. Is it worth it? And that's coffee on top of other things. So 10 plus step for life, let's talk about what you can do. So this is my philosophy, to make it simple and make it practical. And so look at the 4 magic bullets for permanent weight loss first. Look at those magic bullets. Number 1, you've got to really want it. You got to really want it. And who are you going to do it for? You're going to do it for that one person on your page that you said, I'm going to do it for this person, but you got to really want it. You want to do it for yourself. And why do you want to do it for yourself? Maybe because you want to live longer. Maybe because you don't want your toes and your feet cut off. Maybe because you don't want to have a sudden heart attack. Maybe because you want to have the best quality life as possible. Maybe because you want to be a grandparent. Maybe because you want to take care of the people around you. I don't know why it is. Make it personal. Get really personal with it. Women, if you're personal enough, you'll be crying because you don't want to leave because of that person. Men might cry too. That would be a rare experience. You've got to really want it. Number 1, you must have a simple plan. Something simple. It can't be complicated. You can't keep measuring and weighing and and it has to be this and that, and it has to be really simple. So here are the 3 simple rules. We'll talk about those. Add, stop, and wiggle. This is in my plan. 10 plus 10 for life means 10 fruits, 10 vegetables in a day. And when I started working with Dr. Dougal, because I had this plan before I started working with him, I talked to him about the fruit and the vegetables, and I said, can our people with diabetes have fruit? Because haven't we been told over and over and over again, whether you're dieting or whether they have diabetes, no fruit? I mean, for goodness sakes, they tell you can have dessert, and they can tell you have all this fat, and they can tell you can have olive oil, and they tell you can have cheese, but just don't have too much, and they tell you can have eggs. Well, all these foods that are high in fat, but they tell you not to have whole fruit. Now, type 2 diabetes is different with everybody. So, you're different from each other, and you're also different. You can be different from day to day with yourself, you see. So you be careful with it. You have to be sensible with it. You keep your blood sugars. You watch your blood sugars. They should be under 100. And if you monitor yourself, if you fast overnight, so about 12 hours, you fast overnight, then you take your blood glucose. It should be on an average it should be under 100. Now, if you just eat something and it's high, it doesn't matter. According to Dr. Dougal, it doesn't, in the books I've read, it doesn't matter. It's the fasting. So after a night of fasting, you wake up, take your blood glucose, it should be under 100. And consistently under 100. And if it's not under 100, then you know you're in trouble. So, but diabetes, the thing about type 2 diabetes, it's a wonderful disease, if you can say that, because it truly is a numbers game. When your numbers go down, when your weight goes down, and when not your calories, but when your fat content goes down, your cholesterol goes down, you know what happens? Your blood sugars go down. It truly is a numbers game. So you can mark it. With cancer, you can't do that. But with diabetes type 2, you know what you're doing to yourself. Now, if you at first cannot eat certain fruits because it makes your blood sugars go up, after fasting all night, then you know that that probably isn't the right fruit for you. But almost all of our diabetes patients that we work with, almost all of them, can eat whatever fruit they want to eat as long as they are not eating the food with all the fats. The fat does two different things. It makes the insulin insufficient in the body. And it also coats the cell in your body if we have excess fat in our body. So it also coats the cell. So if it makes the insulin, see what it does? It's a double whammy. So it makes the insulin insufficient, so it's difficult for the insulin to bring the glucose into the cell if you have too much fat in your diet and in your body. And on top of that, the cell is lined with a fat, and so it doesn't accept the glucose as easily, so it's a double whammy. So that's why the fat is bad. So there's 3 simple rules: add, stop, and wiggle. Add means what? Add the best food for you first. Eat your fruits and vegetables first, and then eat other foods. And I outline that for you: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For breakfast, if you're not diabetic, I say have fruit, because that's the best food for you. If you do have diabetes and your blood glucose does go up with fruit, especially at first, then have oatmeal and fruit. You start working with the whole oats and fruit, and you start working with that. And I talk about that also in the book. Stop eating when your brain tells you you're full. That's before your stomach begs for mercy. So 3 rules: add, stop, and wiggle. We haven't gotten to the wiggle part because with diabetes it's different. Add, stop, and wiggle. So add the best food for you first, and then you eat the other foods. And so I have that outline: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we don't have time to do all that today. Stop eating when your brain tells you you're full. Stop eating when your brain tells you you're full. And then what do you do when you're hungry? What should you do when you're hungry? Eat. Eat. Don't not eat, especially if you have diabetes. You have to keep track of that. If you need to eat. And oftentimes, people with diabetes can eat fruit. But really, type 2 diabetes should be more a vegetable-based diet than a plant-based diet. So instead of so much a plant-based diet, it really should be more a vegetable-based diet. And then add the fruit. So the 3rd rule is wiggle. And wiggle means what? It means give yourself wiggle room. If you have type 2 diabetes, you know how much wiggle room you should give yourself at first. And you know it. Don't you know it? Because if you wiggle, what happens? Your blood sugars go up. And then what happens? Then you have to take more drugs. And then that stuff is in your system. And then you're damaging your blood vessels and your nerves and your kidneys and your feet and your ankle and your eyes. It's not worth it. The wiggle is not worth it. But if you get your numbers in check, you get your numbers down, you know what? Then you'll be able to wiggle some. But at first, you need to be strict with yourself. No wiggle. The other night, I had the privilege of eating dinner at someone's home. It shocked me that I actually was eating dinner at someone's home, because who would want me at their dinner table? And they served key lime pie for dessert. I don't eat sweet stuff, ever. But key lime pie for dessert. And the woman next to me, who is 92 years old, and a little spark plug, and wonderful woman, the woman next to me said, I really shouldn't eat this. And she's thin because I have type 2 diabetes. And then her daughter-in-law said, it's okay, the doctor said you can have a little bit here and there. And then you know what she said? A very wise 92-year-old, she says, yeah, but the doctor didn't tell me I could have this every day. Because she has it every day. And then she messes with what? She messes with the drugs to control it. You're not controlling it. You're still having a lot of problems with it. You're not controlling it. Anyway, so I would not wiggle. And then so the 4 things that magic bullets you need: you've got to really want it. You have to have a simple plan. You have to have hope. A simple plan gives you hope. If we have no hope, what's the point? We just don't want to do it anymore. You might have tried 50 diets, and after a while, it's just hopeless. And you're trying to follow the doctor, and then you find that it doesn't work. So it seems hopeless. So we have to have hope. And the last one is support and accountability. We've done really well in our office with support and accountability. This didn't magically happen. I mean, I would like to say we just my team, myself, sort of dreamt this up, and then overnight it was all done. It didn't happen like this. It's taken years and 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 years, but now we have a really good support system for you. And I'll give you an offer tonight, so you can't even tell me that money's an issue. So the only issue that you're going to have for not going forward and making commitment and making real progress and taking some real positive action steps, the only excuse you're going to have is yourself. That's okay, but just know the only excuse you're going to have after tonight about not going forward and doing something with your bodies right now is going to be yourself. But I want you to look at this. This is your handout, so when you get home, you read this. And I pick out the articles that I think are going to be really pertinent. But this is your time to feel great about you, so what are you waiting for? So these are the 7 gotta gets. That's what I call them, gotta gets. You have to have the tools. You have to have the tools and the knowledge. And this book isn't like a novel. This book you refer back to over and over and over and over again. My people will come in and say, oh, I read the book. Okay, you read the book. We need to go back and read it again because you're still asking me questions that are all answered in the book. Read it again, read it again, read it again. Carrie, who runs our weight loss support group, and I'm sort of her sidekick, I guess you could call me. But Carrie, who runs it, she reads it every time before every meeting. And she picks something else up, and she's read it. I don't know how many times she read it, over and over and over again. She says every time she reads it, she picks up something else. So get the tools. And then we have the playbook, the workbook, which helps you go through the book. It helps you think it. It's not enough to just read it, think it, and write it, and speak it. And so when Carrie thinks she's learning more than everybody else because she's teaching everything as she's reading it and thinking it and writing it and then also speaking and interacting with people. That's how we really learn and make the commitment. Also, get a consultation. If you haven't had one or you haven't had one for a while, get one. Sign up for one tonight. And I'll give you, I'll tell you how much that is because you're going to save a ton of money if you sign up for it tonight. Get, answers to your question. Come to the next forum. You see what we've developed? All these different ways for you to get support. Come to the next health forum, which is next week at the same time in my office, and we only have 20 seats. And I think 12 of them, is that right, Carrie? Yep, 12 of them are taken. And so that means literally we only have 8 seats left. So get one of those seats because that is support and accountability. It costs 0. Nothing. 0. Inspiration and information, come to the next presentation. Sign up now. People couldn't get in tonight because we have such a small venue here. It only holds so many seats. So we're trying to correct that, but we've tried different venues and they haven't worked. So sign up now for the next presentation. If you think the topic doesn't interest you, think again. It concerns all of us. And you get more information. It's on osteoporosis, the bone-chilling truth. It's, what day is that? Oh, August 17th, 2009. Also, the weight loss support group, that costs $10 when you come. It has to cost money because that gives you what? Accountability. If you're going to pay money, then you're going to put more effort into it. The more effort you put into this, guess what? The more you're going to get out of it. Let's get rid of this diabetes. Please, let's get rid of it. So the commitment, you can come to that presentation. And then action steps. Action steps are start looking at the 3 rules, add, stop, and wiggle. And then figure out which of those that you will do. In fact, we're going to do a little bit right now. So next page. What page are we on? 4. Put the date on this page. This is the last page, page 4. It's in the first handout I gave you. So put the date. It's the 13th of July, 7/13/09. Put your name on that. Think about a weight goal if weight is your issue. If it's not, think of another goal. So what's a reasonable 1-year weight goal? Reasonable 1-year weight goal. And most of you know, or a lot of you know, what do I think is at the most reasonable? 30 pounds in a year. That's it. 2.5 pounds a month. 30 pounds a year, no more, 2.5 pounds a month. I know women are very disappointed in that. They want to lose 50. Doesn't work like that, as we can tell by looking around. Doesn't work. You might lose it, but then you gain it back. So 1 month goal, 2.5 pounds. And then think of some action steps. Right now, think of some action steps. So look at the examples on the right-hand side. Action steps are something that you're going to do. And when you leave, get the little calendars. We give these to you out. We give these to you as gifts. Get the little calendars, and in here, this is your little action step calendar that we give out for our weight loss consultations. So first month's action steps. It might be reading a book. It might be going to the grocery store and making some plans. It might be cleaning out your cupboards and getting all the crap out of your cupboards and not refilling them. You know, if you want a treat, have it. Don't bring it into your house because we eat too much of it. For breakfast, what are you going to eat for breakfast? If you have type 2 diabetes, again, try oatmeal and fruit. What about for lunch? Eat a great big salad. The salads are so important, and that lunch salad is absolutely, absolutely critical. I don't know why exactly that is, but I know if you have a great big lunch for salad without meat in it and cheese in it and all the extra little stuff in it, but it's really 10 vegetables, and you fill up on that salad, it really carries you through the rest of the day and satisfies your cravings. For dinner, eat in order. What does eat in order mean? Eat your veggies first. So you have salad first, you have your vegetables second, and then if you're going to wiggle, although I don't like you to wiggle, but if you're going to wiggle, have the meat and have the other pasta or whatever it is last. Because why? You're automatically filling up on the good stuff first, so you don't have as much room in your belly for other stuff. So that's another example of an action step. What about healthy snacks, which are more fruits and vegetables? Get the other snack foods out of your house, the salty snack foods. Remember, salt is not good for diabetes. And what about exercise? Now, the study said what? Remember? 2.5 hours a week, and the people got off their medications. 90% of them. 1 hour a day should be your goal if you're physically able. And if you got up into this room tonight, I'm sure you're physically able. You might not have great knees, and you might have to ride a bicycle or do something that is not your ideal, but I'm sure you can do something. So you can't start with a 1 hour a day, so a goal. So number 5, you can write this down right now. What is the exercise program that you'll commit to right now? So it might be, if you're not doing anything, 10 minutes of walking. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. 10 minutes of walking 3 days a week. You do something that's reasonable, and then with the intention of building up. And the ideal is 1 hour a day. And then get your numbers. See, I have track your numbers on that sheet. So if you have your numbers from your doctor, and you have it now, then write them down and write the date down. And then in 3 months or 4 months or 6 months, your intention is, remember, it's a numbers game. So if you can get your weight down, so your body mass index will come down, your blood glucose will come down, your blood pressure, if you're eating correctly, will also come down, because the foods we eat for diabetes are also the foods that we eat for us to be healthy. They help our health and our heart and our blood pressure and help prevent cancer and all those other kinds of diseases. And also your A1C should be, you should write this down actually so you know, below 6. Below 6. So, but your blood glucose, it should be below 100. So write that down so you remember. So blood glucose should be less than 100, right on that line. And then the A1C, ask your doctor to take that for you because that's the most accurate glucose test. A1C should be less than 6. So it should be in the 5s is where that should be. And consistently. So track your numbers. Let's look at, see what you're doing. If you are not on track, get back on track. I also have this handout. It's called the Pleasure Trap Test, and it's rate your diet and lifestyle. So take this home and do this. It's a great little handout. It's sort of this fun little way to rate yourself, and it makes you aware of those things that are good lifestyle choices. So when you get home, you'll have that, you'll take a look at that. Make the effort to take a look at that. I want to share this with you. So these are the things that we should add to our diets. The vegetables, fruits, depending on how you do with the fruits, the whole grains, whole beans, not raw nuts. I would take those out. This is for my general presentations that I give. I would watch the seeds. And the juices, if you have vegetable juices, they work really well if you make them. If you have fruit juices, you can have them most of the time if you cut them, that you make. Not that you get out of a can or concentrate. Cut them with water by half and half. Or not have them at all. The vegetable juices are really good. I want to share this with you, and then we're done. This is from Ann Nesbitt, who wrote me a letter. And she said, Dear Dr. Leslie, when I saw Dr. Dougal in March, we discussed my intention to get back onto your eating plan to lose weight. She had been on the eating plan, lost weight, got off the eating plan, and gained weight. Sound familiar? Yeah, it sounds human, doesn't it? And he told me that by June 26th checkup, he wanted me to lose 6 pounds. That seemed reasonable. Having used your plan before, I knew losing 6 pounds in 3 months would be easy, but for 2 months, I did not get serious about it. On May 14th, I got the motivation from watching Farrah Fawcett. It's amazing what will trigger us, isn't it? And she decided, my 68th birthday, Anne, was coming in June, and I thought, I'm playing Russian roulette. If I don't get this fat off me and get rid of my type 2 diabetes, one day soon I will be struck by cancer, type 1 diabetes, a heart attack, or stroke, something devastating that will alter my life forever. It's now or never. So the next day, May 14th, I began following your plan in earnest, walking 1 mile every day, initially 25 minutes and then 19 and a half. Initially in 25 minutes and then eventually in 19 and a half minutes. She was timing herself. Then on June 25th, the very day Farrah Fawcett lost her battle, I met with Dr. Dougal after being seriously on your eating plan for 43 days. These are her results. So we're not talking about a lot of time to see results with diabetes or even the markers. Her blood pressure was 124/70, the same as it was 20 years ago. The bottom number had dropped from 80 to 70 since March, which is even more amazing because my hypertension medication had been cut in half on June 5th since the bottom number of my blood pressure was too low. So that was in spite of the blood pressure medication being cut. Her weight in 43 days, she'd lost 15.2 pounds without feeling hungry or deprived. Total cholesterol dropped from 163 to 118. 163 to 118. Since I had a bad case of psoriasis, I have eliminated almost all meat and dairy from my diet as animal products fuel psoriasis. Consequently, my psoriasis has greatly improved and the itching and burning has greatly dissipated. Her LDL dropped, HDL dropped, triglycerides dropped, the A1C dropped also. We're talking about 43 days. So it's not very many days to have results like that. And Dr. Dougal was, and she goes on to say, Dr. Dougal was really pleased. Then he started talking about how important that I was, and it's not me, it's the plan and the information, because I not only motivate, encourage people to lose excess weight, but provide a healthy eating plan to use achieving that goal. Dr. Dougal told me to discontinue taking the metformin. The metformin is a diabetic medication. So after 43 days, the doctor of this plan, Dr. Dougal told her to stop taking it. That's one thing that's very important, that you find a doctor that supports you. And if these are your intentions are clear and you really want to get healthy and get your blood vessels cleaned out and get off of the medication, we really need support people around us that can help support us as we do that. And some doctors are very good with that, and some doctors are resistant to that. You know, once you're on a medication, you're on it for life. And that's the philosophy of some people. So it's very important that you find someone that can support you and says, yay, you can get off of this. Yay. And he cut her Lipitor in half and said that in September, if she keeps going on this track, he'll cut it all off altogether, the Lipitor. And he also anticipates taking off 2 diuretics in September. The psoriasis is improved. So who would have thought that losing just over 15 pounds could make such a difference. See, what's she telling you? She's telling you can do it. You can do it. You can do this. Needless to say, the great results motivate me to stay on track, greatly aided by the wiggle room in your plan. Generally, you recommend wiggling 20% of the time, but you've told me that diabetics should wiggle only 10%. 0%. I did tell her 10% though. According to my food journal, I wiggled 15%, and she still was able to get great results. About 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and this is very common. My doctor recommended that I attend a lecture on treating diabetes given by a local nurse who, in an effort to shock people into taking care of themselves, preaches nothing but negativity, gloom, and doom. So what does that give you hope? No. She says type 2 diabetes is incurable, because that's the way a lot of the medical people think, but not all of them. You just have to pick and choose. And once you have it, you'll have it for the rest of your life. I remember thinking after leaving, listen to this. I remember thinking after leaving, I might just as well crash my car into a tree and get it over with. I cried all the way home. Well, if I ever see her again, I'm going to say, liar, lie, her pants on fire. Because that is not necessarily true. As long as my pancreas still manufactures insulin, she has a good handle on this, doesn't she? As long as my pancreas can still manufacture insulin, it is curable. Instead of merely treating my type 2 diabetes, and I swear to you, I just got this today after I wrote my thing, but it's interesting we said the same thing, Ann, because Ann's in here. Instead of merely treating my type 2 diabetes, I chose to get rid of it. Through your plan, you outline and getting into your pants, an improvement in my statistics is only 43 days proves that your plan works. Dr. Leslie, I'm so fortunate to have come to SQUIM where I have access to your knowledge and expertise, and to Dr. Dougal, the most credentialed physician in the country. Thank you for giving me the means and the encouragement I need to shed this excess weight, along with my many health problems that those extra pounds have brought with them. In love and gratitude, Ann Nesbitt is here. Where's Ann? Oh, Ann. Why don't you just stand up and... Thank you, Ann.
Where's Dr. Dougal?
Dr. Dougal is in Paulsbo. So there's several things that you can do. There's several action steps that you can do that are free. The one thing that I also recommend that you do, along with buying the book, which is a really good tool, and you can refer to it over and over again, and trust me, I don't make money on the books. So it's not a big money-making deal. In fact, I lose money on every consultation that I give. I just wanted to let you know that. I make money in my chiropractic work, and all that my money goes back into my what? Working with you, because I want you to get better. So you know what? Get better. You can do this. But the consultations, if you come in off the street, the 10-10 consultations, which are an hour, which take us quite a bit of time and a lot of energy and effort, are typically $250. And when we give these presentations, we offer them to you for $67. And for this year, I've been giving you the special offer of $29. $29. You can't tell me you can't afford $29. And along with that $29, guess what you also get? The books. So when you get a book package, that's $25 worth. So literally, along with the book, you're paying $4 for an hour consultation with me. So if you had one before, get one again. And if you've never had one, I think you'll find that they're really worthwhile. Ann, you think so?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. Amen. Amen. Unless you're not ready, then it's a waste of time. Don't waste my time, and don't waste your time. But if you're ready, let's go. Okay. Until one is committed, there's hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, and you know this has happened to you in your lives, I know it. The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. You just got to do it first. All sorts of things occur to help one that would otherwise never have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from that decision, raining in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance. When you're ready, the means is there. which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. And this is a question I have for you. Are you in earnest? If you're here, I believe you are. So are you in earnest? Seize this very minute. Whatever you can do or dream, you can begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Only engage, and then the mind grows heated. Begin, and then the work will be complete. So all you have to do is say, what? I can do this. I can do this. This is by Goethe. And one more thing. I love this quote because it reminds me of how dumb I've been at so many times in my life. And like I say, I'm so glad that God looks after stupid people. Decisions that I would have made that didn't work out. And then you look back and think, oh, thank goodness, or thank God. When a great moment knocks on the door of your life, when a great moment knocks on the door of your life, it is often no louder than the beating of your heart. And it is very easy to miss it. So when a great moment knocks on the door of your life, it is often no louder than the beating of your heart. And it is very easy to miss it, by Boris Pasternak. So my hope is that this tonight is a great moment in your life. Knock, knock, knock. And that you'll open the door and step into self-awareness, into yourself, appreciate yourself and love yourself for being the brilliant, unique person that you are, and then take the action steps that you need to take in order for you to be the best person you can possibly be. I know you can do it. Just remember, I'm sitting on your shoulder saying to you, I know you can do it. Thank you so much.